How do you overcome fear? Welcome to Taxevity, where you get insights from insiders who make life better, our many clients and friends. I'm Pramod Sharma, the actuary at the Taxevity Insurance Advisory, and when I'm not doing interviews, I help people manage their financial risks with insurance. Our guest today is Chris Cummins. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
What do you do when you're not being interviewed?
When I'm not being interviewed.
On the rare occasions that happens.
I give speeches for a living. My core business is opening or closing large multi-day meetings for companies. So sales teams will have me in to either kick off their national sales meeting or close it out. And in a 60 or 90 minute speech, it's generally a third intelligent humor bordering on stand-up. It's a third inspiration, and then there's a third sales training or leadership training mechanics built in.
Okay, and you've done 2 TEDx talks already.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I'm a lucky guy. I get to do what I love, and I was asked to give a talk for a TEDx a number of years ago, and that one was called A Passion for Motivation.
Mm-hmm.
And
saw you there.
Yeah, that's right. We met. It was a couple of years ago now.
I think so. Yes.
And then the second one, which was more recent, is called Choose Fear, and I'm finding that it seems to really be resonating. Well, and so what brought us together. So,
and we'll be talking about fear as our topic, and we'll include links to that video. That would be a good one for people to watch before they watch the rest of the interview, probably.
Sure, yeah, and you can find it on the TED site, but we can get the link, I'm sure, in the description.
Mm-hmm. Yes. What's your take on fear?
What's my take on fear?
Mm-hmm.
I find some people ask me, Chris, how do you overcome fear? Tell me about this overcoming. I like to say, when you find out, tell me.
You mean you don't have an answer?
Well, I do.
This interview is over.
Yeah, it's done. We're finished. Forget it. Fear, I've given over 800 speeches in the last 8 or 10 years. And I still, I go into this really, not a dark place, but I go into this fearful place before every presentation.
Okay, now how could that even be? You've done the same thing so many times. You know the audiences. How could you possibly be afraid?
Search me. I mean, there's this mind game that happens for me, and I think it happens for a lot of people, that I'm either afraid of rejection, I'm afraid of criticism, I'm afraid of failure. I have these fears, and they all they change my brain chemistry. I get tense. I'm not as freaked out before a presentation as I was, say, 5, 6, 7 years ago, but I still experience fear. What I'm learning though is to experience the fear and let it hold you back is one thing.
Okay.
But it's quite another to say, okay, I recognize I'm experiencing that fear now. I'm going to go do it anyway. And what I've tried to train myself to do is when I experience that, when you get butterflies in your stomach, and that's literally apparently your body chemistry changing. It's blood leaving your digestive system because it's going into your leg muscles so that you can run away from a lion. Like this. Okay. This is the butterflies. I'm learning that when I experience that, I'm feeling fearful about something. I'm trying to train myself to, go do more of that. Because the more times you push yourself outside of your comfort zone, when you're experiencing that fear, the bigger your comfort zone gets. So the fear is always there, but do it anyway.
Would it be fair to say that, say with the speeches as an example, the 800 that you've done, that if you didn't have the fear, then maybe you don't care as much? That maybe the fear shows that what you're doing really matters? Well,
it's funny you say that. Before a lot of presentations, whether there's 50 people in the room or 2,500 people in the room, I often ask myself, what if today's the day I suck? What if this, and I go into this, oh my gosh. What I'm learning though is that it sort of snaps me into this preparation mode, or what you and I were chatting about earlier, this over-preparation mode, where I want to know so much more about the content and the audience and what's going on that I feel very confident. But it's almost that fear sort of snaps me into, okay, this is for realsies. This matters. And I think the day I stop being afraid of giving a speech is the day I probably give my worst speech.
Interesting. Now, do you feel that we're getting better at conquering fear or addressing fear?
I feel that we're getting better. I feel that some people are, if you want to. And if you want to do something badly enough, I think we do. For me, it took a mentor saying, Chris, every opportunity you get to push yourself outside of your comfort zone, do it. Because that's the only time you grow.
That sounds like something from your latest TEDx
it
talk.
Is, yeah. In fact, a number of my mentors have said it. I first heard it from Jared Jones, the former CEO of Coca-Cola Bottling. I saw him give a talk years ago. And that really hit me. I thought, okay, I think I can do that. So he said, Chris, what do you want to do? And this was years ago. I said, I'd like to give speeches. I love that. And he said, great, every opportunity you get to give a speech, do it. If someone says, please speak into my microphone, do it no matter how much fear you're experiencing. And I thought, well, that's scary, but okay, I'm willing to give this a shot. And it was just a couple of days later that I got a call, can you give a speech? Oh my gosh, I'm not ready. And I could hear him in the back of my mind saying, well, you have to do it now.
Right.
So when you ask me, are we getting better at overcoming fear? I think if you want to badly enough, you will. But it also helps to have a couple of tips. One of the things that I've learned is this doing things that scare me. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying jump in front of a bus. I'm not talking about the things that can physically harm you. Right. I'm not saying invest in very risky investments because they scare you.
Right.
There are certain fears, I believe, that are hardwired into us to protect us that way.
Right.
But I think some of these intellectual fears, they hold us back from stuff. So my argument is that if you're experiencing the fear about giving a speech or meeting someone new, or closing a deal with a prospect, or something that may result in criticism or not getting the outcome I want, recognize that there's some risk involved in life, and that fear is probably holding you back from other parts of your life too.
Right, because you will survive one way or the other, and the downside may not be as bad as we are concerned about.
Yeah. So I don't know if we as a society are necessarily getting better at overcoming or conquering fear. I don't think anyone truly conquers fear. At least I haven't in my life. What I've discovered is I recognize it, it's there, and now when I experience it, I'm training myself, that's an indication that I should probably go do that. And it's even more important that I do it now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've seen your TEDx talk, for instance, and it's pretty motivating. I feel, I can do some things, but then we get back to our normal lives and maybe things don't change as much as we'd like them to change. What ways can we get support while we're trying to make change?
Make change relating to what?
To
Overcoming fear?
Overcoming fear.
How can I get support to help me overcome fear?
Or what do you do?
One of the best things that I've found is going public with something.
Oh.
You just don't keep it a secret to yourself. I'm going to do this. And then you tell enough people in your life that I'm going to do this, they can call you on it. So have you done it yet? No.
Okay.
So I think one of the best ways is to have some cheerleaders and you call it accountability partners or what have you. People who can call you on it. I have a couple of friends. One of them I was on the phone with on the way here, and he called me on something, and I said, don't go there. It's uncomfortable. But he's right. And if I didn't have friends calling me on that kind of thing, then I'd be more likely to just sort of retreat back into my little safe comfort zone instead of the guy's right. I should do that.
Okay, so you're not saying put it all over the internet, but maybe tell a few people who you care about and who care about you that this is a goal you've got.
Certainly, yeah. Well, I would suggest as well, if you want to accomplish something, the more people that know you want to accomplish that, the more likely you are to get support.
That's a good point too.
So perhaps it does mean putting it on the internet. I don't know. I mean, if we speak in general terms, there are lots of things that you could go public on. That wouldn't hurt if other people found out. Oh, he wants to do that. Well, I've done that. Maybe I could help him.
Yeah, I guess an example that comes to mind is this interview series that we didn't know how we do interviews, and there's a lot to know about cameras, etc. But you have to tell people before you've got the first guest that you're doing an interview series. And by doing that, it probably did help in getting everything started. And then once you get started, the momentum helps you keep going. Yeah,
I have to agree. The more... I would think that starting an interview series, if you're uncomfortable starting it, you probably experience some fear yourself. Mm-hmm. And you thought, oh my gosh, is this going to work? I'm not sure. And you said, you know what? Whether or not it works, we're gonna do this. And we're all human. It was actually Robert Pritchard. I heard him speak at a leadership training. He used to be the president of the University of Toronto, and then he was president of Toronto Star Publishing. And one of the things Robert Pritchard said was, people will always forgive mistakes, but they will never forgive unprincipled action.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Would you mind explaining that a little more?
Well,
I understand the first part.
Yeah. What hit me was if you set up an interview series, or I'm trying a project,
mm-hmm.
and I mean well, but I made a mistake. I fell down.
Right.
Oh, the guy's human. I'll give him a second chance.
Okay.
But if unprincipled action, I mean, if the person lied or stole or betrayed confidence, it's hard to forgive that. So what I find interesting is mm-hmm. I'm guilty of this too. I'm afraid of being criticized. What if they criticize me? I'm afraid of failure. I'm afraid of rejection. I think a lot of us are. But if I'm being criticized for stealing something, it's mm-hmm. probably
that'd be a little worse.
Well, it's worse, but it's also warranted.
Yes.
Whereas if I'm being criticized for sticking my neck out and trying something new, chances are the person doing the criticizing wanted to do it too, but didn't think they could do it, and they get great joy in seeing someone else fail at it.
Yes.
I've found a lot. I used to do this as a kid as well. I mean, if you can, if you don't think you can do something, often you'll try to make sure someone else doesn't accomplish it too. Therefore, you feel like a success. Whereas if someone else does something that you don't think you can do, you think, oh, I'm a failure.
That's right, yes. One of the things that I do is I call a lot of new things experiments.
Ooh,
and that way, with an experiment, it's okay if it fails. Because you're not saying that this is the delivered product. It's just a beta, or not even that.
Couldn't agree more. And life's one big experiment. I mean, anytime human beings are involved, there's imperfections. And I've found that I do have this fear of failure. I have this fear of rejection, fear of criticism. I have to recognize that and just go do it anyway.
Mm-hmm. You've talked about how you get support from some of the people around you. Are there mechanisms you use to support yourself?
Are there mechanisms I use to support myself?
Mm-hmm. Certain things that you do, so if there's no one else around you, then you can still achieve certain goals.
I'll use giving speeches as an example.
Okay.
I can give a number of great speeches in a row, and then for whatever reason think, oh no, what if I'm not good at this anymore? What if tomorrow's the day I finally fail at this? I find that if I watch some of my past speeches,
mm-hmm.
I remind myself, this is not your first rodeo. You can do this.
Okay, so those help inspire you rather than you looking at it saying, oh, I didn't do this quite right, I didn't do that quite right.
Well, both, in fact. I've discovered that videotaping, or at least audio taping each presentation, as scary as it was, you want to talk about fear. I mean, the first time you watch yourself on video.
Right.
I had a DVD of myself in a drawer for months of my first big professional speech, and I couldn't watch it. And,
right.
And eventually I put it into my computer. I hit play, and 4 seconds in, when I slammed the laptop closed and got up and held my head, I think, what am I? The second time you watch yourself, it's a bit easier. The third time, it's a bit easier. And what I'm learning is to watch each speech, or at least listen to each speech. You're your own worst critic.
Right.
You can pick out, I did that. So I find it's helpful to sort of sharpen my axe or improve my craft. Mm-hmm. But it's also helpful to see, I didn't fail. I didn't fall down. I didn't mm-hmm. embarrass myself. It went well. So mm-hmm. to answer your question, are there mechanisms that I use? I've found that reminding myself that this is not the first time, and you can do this.
Mm-hmm. And recording yourself is a really good idea. I was in Toastmasters for a number of years to get to this stage that I could do video. And I would record every speech, and I put most of them on YouTube. Uh-huh. And they're not really amazing, but that's the best I could do at that time. And I knew that for me to get better, maybe this is making a public statement, I wanted to put that there and move on. But what really surprised me, because in Toastmasters people are attending to get better at leadership and speaking,
Yes.
is that there would be many people who wouldn't even record their speeches. And you can't get better unless you record it. So there's a courage taken there. And you can't get better unless you watch that speech later, even if it's months afterwards.
Or years in my case.
Absolutely.
But then we go back to that fear. There's that, fear of failure. Well, the speech has already happened, so there's no more failing that can occur. So there's almost this, I'm going to protect my own ego, my sense of self, by not seeing me fail on video. But you're right, that's the best way to improve.
What are the sorts of things that you're afraid of these days? Because it sounds like you still have some fears.
Right back to rejection and failure. I mean, two very prominent. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're pretty common in having those fears. Napoleon Hill, back in 1937, came up with the 6 basic fears, and number 1 on the list was poverty, but number 2 was criticism. And it's really tough when someone says something that isn't so nice.
Oh, it's hard on the ego, right? It was my father who said, I'd have to paraphrase, but he said something to the effect that the higher you rise in an organization, there are fewer people at that level, which means that there are fewer targets for things to hit. So you're more likely to get stuff thrown at you. And it's impossible to please everyone.
Right.
So we have to accept that, if you take a stand on something, there are going to be people that disagree with you.
And at least they care enough to say something.
Well, this is true.
Though it may not be something you care to hear.
Yeah. I think it was Winston Churchill that said, you have enemies, good, means you stood up for something.
Yes.
You stood for something or took a stand. So if you talk about my fears, gosh, it's like a consistent failure. And it's also interesting, sometimes we have a fear of success.
Okay, would you mind explaining that?
Counterintuitive, but I'm noticing in my own life, if I get too busy, then I won't be able to deliver the level of service that I have been delivering that people are commenting on is so helpful. If I book too many in a row, I won't be able to deliver the level of customization that I want, and then I'll fail. And so that fear of success keeps us at a certain level. I've learned outsource the things that you dislike doing and the things that are taking a lot of time and focus on what you're good at. It helps you overcome the fear of success thing too.
Yeah, it looks like we have lots of fears. And yes, the fear of success is one that we don't often think about. And
it's counterintuitive. You thought, come on, there's no fear of success. Well, you ask enough people who've met with tremendous success, they'll tell you, no, I had something held me back. And it wasn't until you decided, you know what, I can do this, and it's not going to kill me to do more speeches or to grow my business or to have more clients. I can still deliver a level of service, provided I put more systems in place.
Is there a key message you'd like to leave with our audience today?
Oh, a key one that one of my mentors told me, and I try to do it every day. Do one thing a day that scares you. Don't jump in front of a bus. It might scare you. But just write down something in the morning. What's one thing that's scaring me today? Write that down and then do that thing. And maybe as simple as go talk to someone you've never met before. Maybe it's take a stand. Maybe it's give a speech. Maybe it's speak up in a meeting. These little things, your comfort zone will just start to grow the more often you do it.
Okay, that leads to a follow-up question, because I've heard that idea of do something that you're afraid of like each day, and it makes a lot of sense, though it's scary just putting down the things that you have as fears. But is your idea that you just do it for that one day, or is it that you do it from that one day onwards?
Well, not to get too overwhelming. I mean, you could perhaps tack a bunch of them on, but I'm suggesting just one thing every day that you have this intellectual fear about. And then when your head hits the pillow, okay, no, I did that. It scared me, but I survived. And then your brain, I find anyway, my brain starts to rewire itself. Hey, what else could I do?
Okay.
If I was able to do that, maybe I'll try that again tomorrow. It's still a bit scary, but I'll try it.
Okay, and it gets easier each time you repeat that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have the debilitating stay up all night fear that I used to have before a presentation, but I still have the butterflies. I still pace back and forth backstage. I wear a hole in the carpet. Don't talk to me before a presentation. A lot of people are surprised to hear that. They think, what? I mean, you do this for a living. You've given so many speeches. You're still, yeah.
And the fact is, you speak, when you're on stage, you look so natural and comfortable, and it looks like everything's flowing. So it's hard to believe that behind the scenes you had those issues.
Well, what do they say about ducks? It's all calm on the surface, but underneath, when you are prepared enough, it can calm your nerves.
Right.
And I have learned over the years that I do a presentation skills training course that I've delivered a number of times to senior leaders at companies. And they'll say, Chris, we'd like to be able to teach our leadership team to deliver the kind of presentation we just saw you do.
Okay.
And one of the things that I tell senior leaders is when you're giving a speech, whether it's to 6 people or 600, little things like monitoring or preparing your first 20 steps. What are you doing when your introduction is being read? That's part of your preparation. You're standing when they're reading your introduction. You're not looking down. You own the room, just standing there, not even at the podium. You've counted your steps. You know where your left foot is going to go, where your right foot is going to go. You know which foot is stepping on the step first and second and third and fourth and fifth. You know exactly where you're going to be on the stage when you shake hands with the introducer, so that it's not a surprise. And in the early days, and before my first stand-up comedy gig ever, I turned the lights off in my living room, and I would visualize the stage. I would visualize the mic, the lights, the audience, everything, and I would walk up. I could see myself putting my foot on the microphone stand, putting my right hand on the microphone stand, my left hand on the mic, taking the mic off, moving the mic stand out of the way, and beginning. And so you overcome that fear by practicing it.
Okay, and practicing it mentally can be as good as practicing it in real life.
Yeah. So when you say, Chris, you seem so calm, well, part of it is that I've walked that walk in my mind a whole lot of times beforehand, and I've been in the room the night before where I'm checking out the room. I'm in the room before anyone gets there in the morning, and I'm becoming more comfortable with, okay, here's the path I'm going to take. My left foot is going to step on the first step. My right foot will be on the second. I'll walk over to this spot. So I'm not processing it in the moment. My mind is clear to focus on, okay, here's my first 3 sentences that I know exactly what I'm going to say and the pace at which I'm going to say them. And so while I'm saying those, my brain starts to calm down. Okay, we can do this. Okay, we got this. And so I find I calm down internally, but because I've managed that process a lot of times beforehand, you don't really notice that I'm freaking out inside.
Not only have we learned about fear, we've also got some really good tips on public speaking.
Cool.
What's the best way for people to reach you?
Well, email's fantastic, and my website, of course, is chriscummins.com. It's ChrisCummins.com.
And we'll put that on the screen.
Yeah, and there's also a site where the Choose Fear TEDx talk is hosted. It's just called ChooseFear.com.
Oh, okay.
So there's a cool little Facebook thing where people can comment on, hey, well, here's a fear I chose, and some people have been making some cool comments on there too.
Yeah, and you should definitely watch that video. It's one of my favorite TEDx talks. It's entertaining, and you don't really know where it's going, but it works really well.
Cool.
Thanks for dropping by, Chris.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Pramod.
Thanks for joining us for Tea at Taxevity. The Taxevity Insurance Advisory helps you understand insurance and bridges gaps in your coverage. There's no premium for peace of mind. How healthy is your insurance?